Hello and welcome to All the Stitches. This is a show about quilting, knitting, needlework, and whatever crafts I might be up to. My name is Colleen and I'm coming to you from the Lakes region of New Hampshire in the United States. Today's show is episode 6, Starts and Finishes, and I'm going to show you today some projects that I've finished as well as some projects that I'm very excited about having started. With the coming of fall, I don't know about you, but I feel energized when the weather gets cool, and I can't wait to turn things over and start working on some new projects. So that's what I've done, and I'll just get right to it today. The first is something that I literally dreamed up. For some reason, you know how you get those song worms in your head? And I was thinking about that old song by Donovan, Must Be the Season of the Witch, and I think what happened is that song was going through my head, and at the same time I was dying to get to some fall stitching. So for me it became the season of the stitch. And I was half asleep and half awake when the idea for this quilt came to me. Over the course of just 2 days I got this done, so it's both a start and a finish if you have to classify it. So I got the witch from free clip art on the internet. Thank goodness for free clip art. And the rest I just embroidered. I used a chain stitch to embroider the words. And then I applied the moon and the stars just with some Wonder Under or Heat and Bond, one of those. And then I did long quilt stitches. And I thought, it was a quick and easy project that I can hang in my quilt studio here for the holiday. My second finish today is counted cross stitch, and I know you've seen a sneak preview of this one, but now it is done. It is the Prairie Schooler Santa from 2007. I know I've shown you, there's the pattern. And there he is with all his knitting surrounding him. This was a lot of fun. This was part of my Jolly July projects. I started it then, but just finally finished it in September. And I think it's time to move on from Jolly July. Although I'm very excited to have this done. And he'll join my Sewing Santa that I also finished. I have talked about what I was going to do with this before, but I've decided that I'm going to make a third Santa, and that's the Quilting Santa by Prairie Schooler. So I will have the knitter, the Sewing Santa, and the Quilting Santa, and I'm going to put them one next to another and make a little quilted wall hanging out of them. So I'll be very excited to get that done, maybe for this Christmas. I've just used DMC thread, and I've used 14 count Aida cloth in oatmeal. I use the suggested colors. My next finish is something I'm so excited about having finished. Probably as excited about working on it as I was finishing it. It was a really fun knit, and it's the Habitation Throw. Hard to show. But it's the Habitation Throw by Helen Stewart. It's knit on the diagonal, and it's knit with, in this case, you can use any yarn you want, but I used fingering weight mini skeins. And the ones I used were a set from KOIGU that was called Beaches, or Beach, excuse me, it was called Beach. And I just think it just looks like the beach. It just reminds me of a summer's day. This was such a fun knit, and I can see why so many people have been making this. It's just relaxing and meditative knit, and I really enjoyed working on it. Now, there's one thing I didn't enjoy, because I always have to have a story, you know. There's always some adventure with me when it comes to knitting. I used a magic knot ball to tie the little mini skeins together and formed it into one big ball, which was great. It was convenient. You'd have no ends to to sew in except the beginning and the end. And the only problem was when I got it done, I laid it out and I was so excited to have it done. And I looked and it looked like a big chunk was taken out of the side of on the side. And what happened was one of the magic knots wasn't so magic after all, and it opened up, and I lost the stitches on the side. I tried to fix it and it wasn't happening. So I ended up having to take a quarter of the blanket back, take it all out, and then I put a lifeline in and was able to pick up those stitches again and continue on. But I have to tell you that it's one of those things that I enjoyed knitting so much that once I got everything back on the needles and restarted, I didn't mind. I'd kind of missed it for a couple of days. So it's done. I love it. I'm already planning another one. This one is a gift, which is really exciting because it's September and it's a Christmas gift. I'm usually not so organized, but like I said, I loved working on it so much that I couldn't put it down. The habitation throw was a long-term project, but the others I finished pretty quickly. So now we're on to my starts. And I have to tell you, I'm so excited to have started some new projects. I've been finishing up unfinished projects for several months. I just said, it's time to move on. So for my first one is a knitting project. And, okay, I'm probably cheating a little bit because I didn't just start this recently. I've had these started for some time, but I've recently kind of gotten back to it. Here's a picture. They are the Charlie socks. And this I purchased from Knit Picks. Look at the little trees on the toes. And it's a pattern by Bethany Richards, and you can download it from Knit Picks. Show you one more thing that's wonderful about this. Look at the bottom of the foot. That's fun. It has a little checkerboard on next to the toe. So I'm very excited about these. I credit my friend Sue, who alerted me to this pattern. And coincidentally, she just got a puppy named Charlie. So she's made her Charlie socks. And now I'm making mine. So we'll both have socks for Charlie. Not for Charlie, but I'm working them at the same time so that I don't have that second sock syndrome. You know how that is. But I'm working them from separate balls of yarn, but at the same time. So it's getting there. This is a really nice yarn. It's a Knit Picks yarn, and it's very inexpensive, but boy, it's really nice. It's STROLL Tweed from Knit Picks. And of course, I don't know the color, but I'll try to note it down below. The pattern is for a toe-up sock, which I've never done, and certainly I could have given it a try, but I'm so used to top-down socks that I've just converted it. I've just flipped it around, so I'll just do my usual heel and toe for this. My next start is a counted cross-stitch start, and this is the one I've mentioned in my little bag that I mentioned last time. This is the one I talked about on my last show, the Fall Frolic show. And I started it and I'm so excited. This is the Farm Girl Fall by Lori Holt. And you can see I've only just started the last couple of days. And there it is. Sorry about the wrinkles. So you can see I've got the pumpkin done and I started the turkey down below. It's going to be a quick one, I can tell, and I'm really enjoying it. It's a lot of fun. I'm using 4 strands. I'm just using DMC floss, but the colors are awfully pretty. They're very pretty. They're very fall, but they also have a really lovely little mix of some pinks and some teals. And I found these cute thread drops. I know it's hard to see, but they're little Halloween themes on them, and I thought that's perfect. I've never used thread drops before, and well, the jury's still out. I think probably I cut the thread too long, so I'm kind of fighting the tangle here. But I like the idea of and then, oh, this is typical me. And then this one I cut too short. Don't ask me how. I just do things like that. But the thread drop is from someone on Etsy, samplersandstitches.etsy.com. She's in the UK, which I didn't realize when I ordered these, but I got them incredibly fast. So hopefully you'll see that progressing pretty soon. I am trying to stick with my at least an hour a day of needlework. So far it's worked. My next start is a quilt. I've had the pattern for a long time. And I recently dug it out of the pile and said, you know, this is really nice fabric. It's all batik fabrics. They are quarter circles. And it's just a mix of batik fabrics all cut up into circles, quarter circles. It came with these templates. And so it was really easy cutting with a rotary cutter. But, you know, the hard part about curves is sewing them. Like, how do I sew that together? But I do know how to sew a circle together or a curve together. You know, you have to just pin and pin and pin. At the time, I remember they were selling, some booth at a quilt show was selling a sewing machine foot for sewing curves. And they said, you didn't have to pin, you just use this sewing machine foot. Well, they saw me coming. That foot never worked for me. It never really worked on my machine, and it didn't work that way. So it's always the old-fashioned way. You just have to pin the heck out of these things and sew, and it eases right in. What I'm going to do is put 4 of them together so you can see how I'm going to set it. And they have to be trimmed. You know, they don't come out perfect because of that curve. They don't come out perfect, but it's pretty darn close. See, that's how I'll put them together. So that's 4 of the curves sewn together. I think it'll be a nice quilt. And it'd be nice to get something done that I've had stashed away for a long time. I have a few blocks done. I have a lot more to go until I decide it's big enough. I do have a lot more to go. I have a lot more to go than I have sewn, but I'll get there. I have a new knitting project. Since I finished that habitation throw, I've been wanting to make this sweater all summer. And then I decided I was going to be a monogamous knitter, and then I would just knit one big project at a time. So I had stashed away in my little bag here, I had the Super Simple Summer Sweater by LOCATELLI. She's a great pattern designer. And her sweater, she designed it for 2 different color yarns. And I guess it's called the Super Simple Summer Sweater because she used a blend of cotton and wool. Now, I don't know what worsted weight sweater you could wear in New England in the summer. No, not even a cotton one. So what I decided to do was use a worsted weight yarn that I really like. That is Plucky Knitter Scholar 2.0. So you can see I have the start of, it's a top-down sweater. So I have the start of the neck, and I've joined the first stripe yarn. What I'm going to do is this. Hopefully this works. Well, here's the oatmeal for the base. And then the first stripe is going to be this light blue. The second stripe is going to be the medium blue. I need another hand. And the third stripe on the bottom is going to be the dark blue. What do you think? Oh no. What do you think? I think it's a nice mix and something different. Then I'll really look forward to the next stripe because it'll be something new. Next up for my starts is something I've been really dying to do, and I've had the fabric set aside for quite some time. So, and I know I keep saying that, but that is Counting Sheep. It's by the Woolen Needle, and it calls for, well, you can do it any way you want, but I've used wool for the sheep, and then I'm using homespun for the background. Instead of 5x5, I'm doing 4x4. I might grow it, I'm not sure, but we shall see. This was my first one. I'm using a blanket stitch to sew around the little sheep shapes, and the feet and head is not done here. I'll have to go back in and do that, but that's just the first one. I have them all pressed on with a lightweight heat and bond product. So I have all kinds of little sheep ready to go. Here's another one. Well, there's so many. I'm not going to go through them all. I'll show you as I go along and when I'm done. I just love the shape of these little fellows. I think they're adorable. And I'm going to love to have this behind my sewing machine hanging on that wall. I think it's the perfect place for it. And those are my starts and finishes, but I'm also going to talk to you a little bit about journaling for craft projects. And it's, you know, it's something I did years ago when I first started quilting. I started to keep a notebook that would have a picture of the quilt that I finished and maybe some fabric samples and a little story about it. Maybe, you know, it was a gift for somebody. You know, I came across that book the other day, and it's, you know, it goes back a long way, and it goes back to my very first quilts, even before I really even knew how to quilt. I just kind of made it up. And I found on Amazon.com, I found they had these little journals. This one's a quilting journal. This one's a knitting journal. So, well, for me, it could be crochet too, but it's for me, it's a knitting journal. So part of me said, you know, I have a Ravelry account and I keep a record of everything that I knit on Ravelry. So I'm not sure why I need this, but you know what? It's really kind of fun. It's kind of a nice thing. As I start a project or as I finish a project, I will enter it here. And it's also a good place to keep your ball band, so you can check your washing instructions and so forth. If someone asks you what you use, you might have it. So my first entry, I'll just give you an idea. The pages are pre-printed, which is nice because, you know, for people like me, it's just easy to just fill it in. So I put a little yarn sample in. You put in what type of yarn it was. On the next page, I print out a photograph of the project. The next one is a sweater, and I put in the photo as well as the ball band. If there's a little story or a little history or something about the quilt, I put that in as well. Oh, I have to put in my picture of the habitation throw. But, you know, you record when you started, when you finished, if it was a gift, and so on and so forth. You can record whatever you want. But I think it's really nice. It's a really nice thing to do and try to keep track of everything. And you feel like you've really finished something once you can enter it in the book. And the same thing with my quilting book. I probably put in a little more detail because I don't, you know, there's no Ravelry for for quilters. But for instance, I have, here's one of my quilt entries. On the back is a picture of the quilt and a strip of the fabric. This is the Acorn Hollow fabric that I've mentioned that I absolutely love and I've used so many times, so I kept the band. And, you know, I made a baby log cabin. I don't know why I'm showing you. You can't really see the print. But on the back of that page is a picture of that quilt and a picture of the fabric. This quilt was made from selvage edges, wide selvage edges of fabrics that were being sold at Keepsake Quilting at the time. They were selling the whole fabric line, just the edges, for 99 cents. So I was able to get a whole baby quilt out of them, and that was a charity quilt. I made a quilt for a friend who was sick, and I put in a picture of his label, and there's a picture of the quilt. It's been fun to do this again, particularly quilts that you give as gifts. It's nice to have a remembrance of them. Maybe, if I get a thank you note from someone or something, I will put in the thank you note in the book. But these are relatively inexpensive from Amazon. I know there's so many ways to journal, and I have to say I'm envious of people who are really wonderful journalers or journalists, whatever that is. And, they write beautiful journals and they draw pictures and they're just so artistic with it and they're faithful with it every day, writing something. And I have grand plans of doing that. And then I never really do it because in the end I say, well, could I work on some quilting or knitting, or could I journal? And I'll always pick the project over the journal. So this is a good way of making me feel like I'm doing some journaling and still allowing myself some time to do all the other things. Well, that's all I have for you today. But I do want to mention that I'd like to thank you all very much for the followers that I have, for the people that have checked in, for the people that have liked my videos, that have subscribed, and the people that have left comments. I'm having a good time doing this, but sometimes you wonder, does anybody care? So for someone to just correspond that way, or leave a note, or even just like a video, it's so helpful to know that someone's out there and somebody's listening. And so I want to thank you all for spending this time with me. I also want to thank my sister-in-law, Carol, who sent me a lovely note and telling me how much she's enjoying these. And we don't get to see each other. She lives down in Virginia. She was telling me how much she was enjoying seeing these shows. And she's not a crafts person, but she appreciates it. And she told me a story about how she tried knitting and had the same experience that I did. It didn't go well in her class, so I thought that was really funny. I didn't know that about her. So thank you, Carol. Thank you for watching, and thank you for that lovely letter. And I also want to thank Lisa, who's someone I don't know, who left a comment last time after my Fall Frolic video. And she told me that she was also a crafter, that she was enjoying seeing my quilts. And she told me that she has quilts that her grandmother and her great-grandmother made. And I think that's so wonderful, Lisa. That is such a blessing to have that history in your family. And thank you so much for leaving that comment. I would love to grow this community. I would love to hear from more people. In fact, why don't you tell me what you're working on, what your starts and your finishes have been lately. Now, if you like this video, please leave a thumbs up. Leave a comment, and go ahead and subscribe if you want to get notice of future videos. But in the meantime, until next time, I hope all of your stitches bring joy. Thank you so much for watching.